There are questions that are not born from the mouth, but from the exhaustion of the soul, questions you don't ask when you are strong, but when you are tired of trying, tired of waiting, tired of believing. They appear like a frustrated whisper, almost an intimate confession. Jesus, why do I try so hard and nothing changes? It's that feeling of walking for months, maybe years, pulling invisible chains, trying to do good, trying to forgive, trying to be strong, trying to rise again, trying to become someone better, yet realizing that life stubbornly remains the same. You pray, you persist, you believe, and still nothing seems to move. It is like standing before a door that never opens, no matter how much you turn the key, plead, or knock. It feels as if heaven is silent, and that is why you ask. Not because of lack of faith, but because of excess struggle. Not because you have given up, but because you are tired of continuing. And this is where I ask you to pause and breathe. Because there is something powerful hidden inside this question, something you may have never considered. Have you noticed that your frustration does not come from the absence of movement, but from the absence of understanding? It is not that nothing is happening, it is that you are not seeing what is happening. Jesus does not move at your speed or in your way. When you think you have no progress, he is laying foundations. When you think you are standing still, he is shaping you. When you think nothing changes, he is preparing the change that truly matters. But that does not ease the pain of the present, the pain of trying and seeing no result. The pain of waking up, hoping for something new and ending the day with the same battles. The pain of feeling God close, yet distant. You have felt this before. Maybe you feel it now. And Jesus knows this place better than you think. Imagine your life as a house built on a hill. For years you decorated walls, changed furniture, rearranged everything, adjusted details, repainted what looked old. Yet the internal feeling remained the same, as if something was out of place, slightly crooked, never fitting. And then one day Jesus appears, not with new paint or furniture, but with tools you would never use. He ignores the windows, roof, and wall colors. He goes straight to the ground, kneels, touches the floor, and says, "Your problem isn't the decoration, it's the foundation." That's when you understand why your efforts didn't work. You wanted superficial change. He wanted structural transformation. And structural transformation is slow, deep, silent. It feels like nothing is happening until everything happens at once. Jesus knows your intentions. He knows you are not trying out of vanity. He sees your heart, sees when you try to stay calm while everything inside wants to collapse, sees when you smile outside while fighting inside, sees when you give more than you receive, love more than you are loved, forgive more than anyone notices, sees when you try to be light even while surrounded by shadows. He never despises that effort. Jesus does not measure results, he measures willingness. You may think nothing changed, but he sees everything that has changed within you. A seed of faith that wasn't there before, a courage born in silence, a resilience you never imagined. Your effort is not ignored, it is seen, acknowledged and used, because with Jesus nothing is wasted. But let's be honest. Trying and not seeing change hurts. It hurts because it feels unfair. It hurts because you're not trying a little. You're trying everything. And trying everything without seeing results hurts more than failure, because failure is clear, but stagnation is not. Stagnation is confusing, foggy, silent. It makes you question if you're on the right path, or just walking in circles makes you feel like God speaks to everyone. But you makes you compare your life to others who seem to advance effortlessly. Makes you think you're not good enough, spiritual enough, strong enough. But Jesus looks at that inner storm with the same tenderness with which he looked at Peter when he was sinking. He didn't say, "Why are you weak?" He said, "Why did you doubt?" And that is what he says to you, not as judgment, but as care, as invitation, as reminder that he is there even when nothing seems to move. Do you know why nothing changes quickly? Because God is changing you first. It is not punishment, not a test, not a demand. It is love, the kind of love that doesn't patch what is torn, but rewrites it from scratch, the kind of love that doesn't rush the process to please you, but respects it to strengthen you. Jesus is not preparing you for a small change. He is preparing you for a change that needs to find you ready. And being ready takes time, because he doesn't want you to just get there. He wants you to remain there. Jesus cares more about who you are becoming than what you are receiving. So if you are trying so hard and feel that nothing changes, maybe the truth is this: the change has already begun. It just hasn't begun on the outside. It began inside you, in the place where nothing and no one can destroy, where faith is born, matures and blooms, where the presence of Jesus builds roots so deep that no storm will ever be able to tear them out. Perhaps you don't realize it, but there is something sacred happening inside you while you persist, while you fight, while you continue even without seeing results. And this is how Jesus begins to shape a heart that does not depend on what it sees, but on what it trusts. A heart that learns to walk by faith, not by visibility. And although this feels painful, it is one of the greatest gifts God gives. Because true faith is not born in comfort. It is born in the absence of answers. It is born in silence. It is born when everything seems still, yet your spirit keeps seeking. It is born when you say, "Lord, I cannot see, but I will stay anyway." And this is where Jesus begins to reveal something deep, something you may have never noticed. He looks at you and says, "You believe nothing is changing because you are measuring transformation by the wrong standard. You measure transformation by what you can see. Jesus measures transformation by what is being formed within you. You measure progress by the distance you walk. Jesus measures progress by the strength your heart gains. You measure results by external signs. Jesus measures maturity by internal firmness." And then he continues, "You want to see doors opening, but I am still strengthening your hands so you can hold them when they open. You want to see paths forming, but I am still healing your wounded steps. You want to see answers, but I am still ordering the chaos inside you." Because Jesus does not work only on what you asked for. He works on what you need to sustain what you asked for. And that truth changes everything. You are not stagnant. You are being cared for. You are not being ignored. You are being refined. You are not being forgotten. You are being prepared for something you cannot yet imagine. And this preparation is not punishment. It is love. A love so deep that it prefers to strengthen you before lifting you, to heal you before accelerating you, to mold you before revealing the full purpose. And that is why Jesus allows seasons of apparent stillness, so you can develop a kind of faith that does not depend on immediate results, a faith that resists discouragement, a faith that remains a faith that survives time, silence, doubts, and storms. Because that is the only kind of faith strong enough to sustain you when the change finally arrives. Many times you think God is taking too long, but what if He is protecting you? What if He is guarding you from something you cannot see? What if the delay you feel is actually Jesus saving you from a shortcut that would destroy you? What if the apparent lack of change is Jesus preventing you from entering something for which there is still no emotional, spiritual, or even physical structure? Jesus does not work only at the end. He works along the way, and He knows exactly how much you can bear, exactly the rhythm your soul can handle, exactly the ideal moment for the doors to open without crushing you. Sometimes you think you are doing everything right, and still nothing moves. And within that silence, an internal crisis is born, one almost no one sees. You begin to question whether God really hears your prayers, whether He is truly guiding your steps, whether He really cares about the details of your life. And it is in that emotional and spiritual space that Jesus comes closer than ever, even if you don't perceive it. In your mind, it feels like absence. In the spiritual realm, it is nearness. In your heart, it feels like silence. In God, it is alignment. In your path, it feels like a pause. In Jesus, it is preparation, and that difference changes everything. Imagine Jesus sitting beside you right now. Imagine Him placing His hand over yours and saying with a calm that dissolves any despair, "You are not alone in this. You never were. The only thing is that you are asking me to change the scenery, and I am changing the main character first. You. Because if He changes everything around you but you remain the same, you will return to the same place. You will repeat old patterns. You will carry old wounds. You will walk through new doors with an old mindset. And out of love, Jesus will not allow that. He is transforming you, not just your life. He is changing your vision, your interpretation, your reactions, your inner strength, your spiritual sensitivity. He is making you someone capable of receiving, sustaining, and multiplying what is coming. And there is something else Jesus wants you to understand. A spiritual detail that completely changes your perception of delay. The enemy does not fight your external change. He fights your internal change, because it is your internal change that destroys spiritual strongholds. It is your internal change that breaks cycles. It is your internal change that closes doors to the past. It is your internal change that opens paths in the spiritual realm. It is your internal change that makes you resilient. The enemy does not fear your achievements. He fears your maturity. And when he sees Jesus refining you, he tries to convince you that nothing is happening. Because if you believe that, you give up before the victory arrives. He knows that if you stay, something powerful will break forth, something he cannot stop, cannot touch, cannot undo. And Jesus looks at you and says, "Do not give up. The change has already begun. It just hasn't reached the outside yet." Everything Jesus does begins this way, silent, deep, hidden but real, just like in Mary's womb, just like in the tomb before the resurrection, just like in the life of every person he transformed. Before it appears, it always happens in the invisible, and your transformation is happening there too, inside, deep, silent but real. Maybe you don't see it, but everything inside you has already begun to change. And it is exactly in this phase, the phase where nothing seems different on the outside, that Jesus is doing the deepest work. He is putting everything in its right place, aligning thoughts, healing memories, strengthening weak areas, teaching you to distinguish what comes from him and what comes from fear. He is refining your spiritual sensitivity. He is teaching you to hear his whisper in the midst of the world's noise. And this, though invisible, is transformation. Jesus is giving you a faith that doesn't depend on circumstances, a peace that doesn't depend on control, a strength that doesn't depend on results. He is creating in you a stable heart, capable of remaining firm even when everything feels uncertain. And then, in the middle of all this silent construction, you say, "But Lord, I try so hard. I pray, I try, I start over. Why doesn't anything change?" And Jesus answers with a gentle firmness full of love. "Because before changing your path, I am changing your internal direction. Before changing your life, I am changing your foundations. Before changing circumstances, I am changing your spiritual awareness. Because the truth is that sometimes you want Jesus to transform the landscape, but he wants to transform your sight first. Sometimes you want quick answers, but he wants deep roots. Sometimes you want open doors, but he wants an open consciousness. And he knows that if he changes everything before the right time, you won't be prepared to sustain what you receive. Jesus doesn't want you to just reach the place you dream of. He wants you to remain there, to flourish there, to live there with fullness and peace. That's why he works on the structure. That's why he moves the invisible. That's why he confronts thoughts that hurt you, patterns that limit you, beliefs that imprison you, emotions that sabotage you. He's not just guiding your steps. He is redefining who you are as you walk, and that takes time. It takes depth. It takes healing. But above all, it takes love. Unconditional love, detailed love, love that cares about every part of your soul. Because the change you expect sometimes doesn't happen on the outside, because there is still something inside that needs to be illuminated. A fear that needs to be named, a memory that needs to be surrendered, a wound that needs to be embraced, a forgiveness that needs to be released, a root that needs to be cut. And it's at this point that many people give up, because it's painful to look inside. It's painful to face what we've tried to bury. It's painful to revisit places that hurt. But Jesus doesn't point these things out to wound you. He points them out to heal you. He reveals to restore. He exposes to set you free. He touches where it hurts because it is exactly there that life will bloom. The truth is that nothing changes on the outside when something inside is still pulling you backward. Nothing transforms around you when your heart is still attached to what was. Nothing becomes new when the soul is still carrying old weights. That's why Jesus starts on the inside, and he tells you, "I am removing the excess. I am teaching you to rest. I am freeing you from expectations that hurt you. I am separating you from what destroys you. I am rebuilding you with my hands." And then, in the moment when it feels like nothing is happening, that's when the most things are being moved spiritually. You just don't see it. And here, while you walk by faith without clearly seeing the next step, Jesus asks you a question that changes everything. Do you trust me enough to continue even without understanding? Because trusting when everything flows is easy. Trusting when there are signs is simple. Trusting when the path is clear is natural. But trusting in the dark, that is true surrender. That is deep relationship. That is spiritual intimacy. And that is what he is building, an unbreakable bond between you and him. A trust nothing will break. A faithfulness nothing will shake. And then, without noticing, you reach the moment of spiritual turnaround. The instant when Jesus finally opens your eyes to something that has been under construction for a long time. He reveals that your faith is more mature, that your heart is lighter, that your mind is clearer, that your soul is steadier. He reveals that you are no longer who you were, that you survived battles no one saw, that you were healed in areas that once held you back, that you were transformed by processes only he understands, and then he tells you, now yes, now you are ready for what you asked for. Now I can open what before you could not hold. Now I can take you to places that would have destroyed you before. Now I can unlock doors you once had no strength to walk through. This is where external change arrives. This is where life starts to move. This is where promises begin to bloom. This is where what was invisible becomes visible. This is where Jesus does on the outside what was already finished on the inside. And all of this happens because you didn't give up. Because you continued even when it didn't make sense. Because you remained even when tired. Because you believed even in silence. Because you sought even without answers. That is why Jesus honors. That is why he changes. That is why he transforms. Now take a deep breath and understand. Everything you lived until now wasn't delay. It was preparation. It wasn't silence. It was refinement. It wasn't abandonment. It was love. Jesus never left you trying alone. He was strengthening you. He never left you waiting for nothing. He was shaping you. He never left you fighting in vain. He was teaching you to trust. And the change you have been waiting for has already begun. It is already on its way. It is closer than you imagine. Just keep going. Just trust. Just remain. And before we end, if this message touched your soul in any way, be part of this journey of faith with me. Subscribe to the channel. Here, your spiritual life is nourished every day with depth, love, and the presence of God. And to seal this moment, write the word renewal in the comments, because that is exactly what Jesus is doing inside you now in this very instant. Deep renewal. Sacred renewal. True renewal. May Jesus take care of every detail of your heart. May he continue working in the invisible. And may you continue walking with him, even when nothing seems to change. Because, in truth, it already has.